right, well, welcome everyone to another Maine SBDC event. My name is Kelsey Reardon, and I am a part of the Maine Small Business Development Centers. We are dedicated to helping the small businesses of Maine in any way that we can. So we provide resources and events like this, as well as zero cost, confidential, one-on-one business advising. So if you had any questions at all about your specific business, we could set you up with a business advisor who would be able to work with you from start to finish, anywhere in between, whatever your questions may be. So we're really recommending that if you have any follow-up questions after today's event, to reach out. After this event, you will receive a follow-up email from me that will include all of that contact information, as well as a recording to today's session and the slides. So if you feel like you've missed anything, you can go back. We are very lucky today to be having our special contractor, Jenny Green, with us to go over using social media to engage and attract customers. Today we'll be going over things to consider while you're building your online presence, how to keep customers engaged, and how to really grow your business online. Jenny Green is a digital marketing specialist with the Maine SBDC right now. So she is a resource that is available to our business advisors. If you requested advising, you could also request to meet with Jenny as a part of that, which is a really cool offering that we have right now. She is a co-owner of Fisher Green Creatives, a marketing and web design firm that's serving the small businesses in the greater Southern Maine region. And without further ado, I will pass it over to her. Ooh, I left her muted though.
Am I unmuted now?
You're all set.
All right,
There we
we're
go.
all set. Thank you so much, Kelsey. That was such a nice introduction. And I'm so pleased to be here today to talk to you about your online presence, social media, marketing, anything we can do to try to help drive business for you. And particularly during this crazy time when so many of us are pivoting to a more structured and intentional online presence. So it's a tough change, but I think that we can walk away today with some really helpful ideas, some actionable takeaways. And so on that note, we will talk about today's agenda. We'll do a quick introduction that we've just done. We're going to outline 4 primary steps that we'll focus on today. I'll have some key points for you, as well as some actionable tips. Again, hopefully you can take those away and put them right to work for you. And then at the end, we'll do some questions and answers, and then wrap up and go from there. So yeah, I know that you're all here today because you know the power of social media. It's something that you need to be doing in order to help your business, because that's likely where your customers are. Some really fascinating stats. 329.3 million people are using social media in North America alone. And the average adult here in the United States and Canada uses social media up to an average of 2.6 hours per day. So that's a lot of screen time and a lot of opportunities for you as a business owner to get in front of them. And that's what we're going to talk about doing today. We're going to get you right there where they are. So let's break down those 4 steps. There are 4 ways that I approach online marketing and social media. First of all, we want to identify and set your goals. We want to identify your audience. We want to define your brand. And then we want to move into content planning and production. And I understand that each of you will be in a different phase and I'll be a little further along this plan. But I'd like to really just review all 4 steps, because I think they're very important to understand how they come together to create a very cohesive and effective digital strategy. But before we really go into those details, I just want to have you think about something quickly. Instead of using the word marketing, try to change that into helping. So all of a sudden, your online marketing becomes online helping. You're helping your customer. You're helping them find the products that will make their lives better. You're helping them learn about your business. You're helping them find directions to your store. You're helping them. And I think if you shift the word marketing from doing something to your clients to doing something for your clients, all of a sudden you'll have a brand new perspective and a new purpose when you're actually working on your social media and digital strategy. So let's start with step one. We're going to set goals. And this is where we identify what you want to get out of your online marketing efforts. So we all know we need to be on social media, we need to be online, but what do you really want to get out of it? And how are you going to measure those goals? What is the full intention of this presence on social media? Why are you doing Facebook? Why are you doing Instagram? Why are you going to all this trouble? And I think that it's really important that you take a moment and really identify what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. I always recommend that you follow the SMART plan. So anytime you're setting a goal, you're being specific, you're making sure that that goal is measurable, you're making sure that it's attainable, that it's realistic, and that it's time sensitive. And again, this are probably things that you've all heard before. It's nothing new in the sense of, being organized and trying to figure out what you're doing. But it's really important that you break that down into something that is tangible for you as a small business owner. And I'll get to some examples here in just a second about that. But again, the SMART model: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. And by the way, before we get too much further into setting goals, be sure that you've set up Google Analytics, have it installed on your website so that you start to collect data on your user traffic. It will also give you information about where your traffic is coming from, and you'll be able to relate that directly to your digital strategy. So if you've not yet taken the time to set up Google Analytics, you definitely want to make sure that you you get right on that, if not today, but as soon as possible. So again, going back to setting goals, when I talk to clients, generally everyone says, I want to sell products, and that's a great goal to have. In terms of social media and digital marketing, there's three primary big picture goals that we set. One is reach and awareness, engagement, and conversions is the third. These three really capture that goal of selling products or selling services, but you have to break them down into three different approaches in order for that to actually happen. And then you have to take that a step further and be very specific with each of those big picture goals. So again, with reach, you have to have key performance indicators, which are metrics, basically. How are you measuring reach? Do you have a certain number of impressions that you're making? Do you send out a certain number of postcards in the mail? You're reaching, you have to have the metrics to support that. The same with engagement. How many likes are you getting? How many comments are you getting? Things like that are really important. And the key metrics, key performance indicators, those metrics give you that information to see if your approach is starting to work. Same with the conversions. How many people are signing up for your email subscription list? How many people are buying from your website? You have to have set numbers and be very specific in order to reach those big picture goals. So here's an example of a SMART goal for social media, and this really translates nicely to small business. So for example, you know that let's say you're a local cafe, you know that you want to make sales, you need to drive traffic, but let's really dig that down into that SMART system. How about we be very specific? We increase brand awareness on Facebook within 5 miles. That's a very specific goal that is looking at that first big picture goal that we were just talking about with the reach and awareness. How are you going to measure that? You can say something like increase your fan count by 15%, or increase link clicks on posts for the new cafe by 15%. Just knowing that you're looking for a specific number when you're working on social media will definitely help you feel like you're working your way through a successful intentional goal. Is it achievable? Yes, it's a 15% increase is pretty reasonable for a small business in a local setting. Is it realistic? Probably, because you have the resources, you know that you have the time to put into it, you have a small marketing budget, so it is reasonable for you. And is it time sensitive? If you give yourself 3 months to work towards that goal, then that would be very realistic for a small business. Obviously, these numbers and these metrics are all going to change depending on where you are and the goals that you're setting. But for small businesses, it's really, really important to have a number of these outlined and written down and intentionally implied in your marketing plan so that you know that you are spending your time and your energy wisely when you're working on social media. And that's oftentimes a big problem. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure where I'm going. Is this even worth it? And by having some of these written down and outlined, you'll really be able to see that you have a direction, and then you can affirm that direction by the results that you're achieving. And if you're not achieving those results that you've outlined in your goal setting, then you know you need to shift your strategy. So then the next question is, how do I measure those results? So I've got my goals. I'm trying to increase reach on Facebook, or I'd like to have more likes on Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. You're setting those specific goals. The best way to do that is to track them. And you can do this yourself. With my clients, I use this really handy spreadsheet where I break out my metrics into those 3 big picture goals. So there's the reach, the engagement, and the conversions. Each one, I would just fill in monthly. I go in, I type it in so that I can at a quick glance see where I am in terms of measuring my metrics. And then I match that up with the goals that I had originally set. So for example, if I'm looking to increase the number of Facebook followers, my baseline might be 500 followers starting in January. What's my end goal by the end of the year? Let's say I want to move to 1,500 followers. Then I can track that over the course of the year and see if I'm making progress towards that goal. If I'm not, then I know that I need to revisit my strategy and make some changes to that. And then all of a sudden, my entire strategy feels intentional. It feels like I have control over it, and I'm feeling really good about what I'm doing. Even if it's not going in the direction that I want it to go, I now can make some intentional decisions about changing that strategy. And I think that's really important for small businesses. And then you'll look at it again, just kind of breaking this down a little bit more. The engagements, that's what is shares, comments, likes, mentions, and then your conversions are essentially your sales. Conversions can also be described as email subscribers, phone calls, forms that are filled out on social media or on your website. Again, these are just very specific ways to measure how you're tracking based on your big picture goals. In case you need help accessing where to find the metrics that you're looking for, so this spreadsheet that you can fill out, you still have to know where to go to get the information. And so I've listed here ways to find the metrics on your social media channels if you're not familiar with how to do that. So the instructions here will be available in the follow-up presentation, so you can always refer back to this on where to find those metrics. Additionally, if you don't want to track them yourself and you don't want to go to the trouble of having the spreadsheet, there are some resources available to you that you can use to do the hard work for you. So these are a couple of recommended third-party sites: Sprout Social, HubSpot, BuzzSumo, some of your scheduling tools, if you're using those to deploy some of your content, will also have those analytics. But no matter what you decide to do, it's really important to make sure that you have a way to track those analytics and that you're also setting those goals. So the key takeaway, just remembering that measuring those results will help keep you motivated, and they'll also help keep you on track as you work through your online and digital marketing strategy. So next up, we want to identify your audience. And sometimes clients will come to me and they'll say, well, I just need to sell my product to everybody. Anybody who needs this can buy it. And so I always like to take a step back and talk about how that may not necessarily be accurate. We really have to be more specific than that. And what we want to do is we want to break down your audience into segments. And the reason for this is because it will make it so much easier for us to develop messaging and content when we have a really, really clear idea of who we're talking to. And so one exercise that I do is break it down into these 6 segments. So first of all, what are the demographics? And so you might have a range. It might be, let's say you're a dentist. Certainly anybody who has teeth, it probably needs a dentist. And maybe even if they don't have teeth, they need a dentist. But your demographics will identify that even though everyone might need a dentist, your specific audience is only people within 25 miles of your practice. So you're not actually really selling dental services to everyone. You're only selling them to people within a certain demographic. And so that's the importance of really being specific and understanding those nuances of who you're selling your product or your service to. Other categories here, I break down my audience segments into interests and behaviors. What kinds of things do they do? Are they interested in? Is there a specific toothpaste that they really like? I make note of that because that will really, again, help me understand who it is that I'm marketing to or that I'm helping when I'm online. It's also just as important to identify who they are not. And again, going back to the demographics, they're not someone who's 100 miles away, and they're probably not someone who maybe is a dentist themselves, who knows? So you might want to really identify who they're not just as much as who they are. Also, in creating those audience segments, think about what kinds of topics are important to them, what kinds of events will matter, what problems do they have that you solve. And you can go through this exercise with each of your segments. So I actually recommend for our clients to develop about 8 to 10 personas. So if you think about 8 to 10 different kinds of people that will come to your shop and make a purchase, what are they like? What events are they interested in? What matters to them? What are some demographics about them? You can even go as far as naming them. A fun practice is to maybe develop a Jenny Green customer, and she's middle-aged, she's lives in Southern Maine, and go through some of those exercises, because then all of a sudden, when you go to craft your content, you have a very specific way of talking to me. You can say, oh, I feel like I'm talking right to Jenny, and here's what I'm going to say to her. And again, this exercise will really solidify who your customers are, who they're not, and how to build on that to craft your messaging and your social media and online marketing efforts. So as an example, let's take an organic pet food company. The product or the customer is anyone who has a pet and wants them to be healthier. That could be very general. It might be right, but more correct when you're developing a buyer persona is my product is for a 25-year-old single professional woman who earns $40,000 a year and considers herself to be a pet parent. She shares dog photos constantly on Instagram. She's also likely to shop at Whole Foods, and she takes her dog to the groomers once a month. She is likely to be within 10 miles of an urban area and lives a busy lifestyle, so convenience is really important. So now I've got this really nice picture of who my potential client and customer is. And so therefore, when I go to build my content, I now have a really specific way to speak to her. I'm going to say, you've had a busy day at work, and the last thing you want to worry about are awful chemicals and scary ingredients in your fur baby's food. Our line of organic food includes a variety of delicious flavors and the option of canned or dried. With our simple online subscription service, you can save 10% and your pup's dinner will be delivered right to your door. Visit our website for all the details. So you've got this really clear message, and you're very targeted, and it's very customer centric, and you'll repeat that process. Every post and every piece of content that you create doesn't necessarily have to be for everyone. every one of your audience members, but it has to be specific so that it really resonates. And this is an example of how to do that. It's also important, just a quick note before I forget, make sure you include a call to action. You want to make sure that you guide your visitor and your audience to what steps they should take next, where they can go to make that happen. And so usually a link to your website or an email address or some more information in the post itself is a great way to do that. So be sure to include that as often as possible. So another question that I get frequently is, okay, so now I know who my audience is, but where are they? And this is kind of tricky because it will vary based on your product, your service, your demographics, but hopefully we can break this down into some of the top tier social media channels for now. And then certainly in a minute, I'll talk about a couple of niche sites not to forget. But of course, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and again, these are the big players. And I'll let you refer back to this. There's some specific demographics, like how many users per site, the gender breakdown, the age breakdown, and these are all important as you line them up with your audience segments. So again, I'll let you come back to that. Also on this sheet, I've noted how often to post on each of these platforms. So this is a recommended guideline. Again, as you develop your audience and your goals, you'll make that decision based on whether or not you have the resources, whether or not it meets your metrics, whether or not you have the staff or the time to do it. There'll be a lot of decisions to make. But if you need just kind of a basic guideline to follow, that's where you can find this. Then I'll follow up the next channels, TikTok and Snapchat, definitely coming to the forefront recently. But again, for the sake of today's conversation, we'll be primarily focused on the major players, the Facebooks and the Instagrams of the digital world. So. Quick tip, if you actually want to break this down into really specific time of day when to post, I have a link right up here at the top. It's a really helpful website, the Sprout Social, which I mentioned just a little bit ago. They have some really great breakdowns by industry, so you can see if you're in the tech industry exactly what time you should post in order to reach the largest number of followers. So I mentioned the frequently forgotten, and these are social channels in the untraditional sense. If you have anything to do with the housing, interior design, construction, any of those industries, Houzz is a highly underutilized platform that does allow for some different types of engagement and posting and sharing, but particularly for e-commerce sharing products. This is a really great place to be. Again, Reddit is another niche site where you can become quickly an industry expert in providing information, Goodreads for authors, writers, bloggers, Google Business Listing. I put this here not because it's not so niche, so to speak, but because a lot of people forget that you can actually engage and post content on your Google Business Listing. And we find the Google algorithms to be a little bit of a mystery sometimes, but it goes without saying that the more you can share on your Google Business Listing, the more likely Google is to like you. And then of course that will help you be seen and found a little more easily on Google. So remember to claim your Google Business Listing, make sure that you're sharing updates and content, and that will it'd be really helpful for your online presence. For most small businesses, just to wrap up this section, they're going to be looking at Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Generally speaking, if you're aiming for 3 to 5 posts per week, you'll be right on track, and that will be some steady momentum. Again, you want to make sure that you're aligning the number of posts and when you're posting with your audience, but this could be a good starting goal. If you could hit these metrics moving forward, that would be great. All right, so next up, we're going to talk a little bit about the brand, defining your brand. It's really important that you review and refresh this and have this handy and clearly established, because this is really the foundation of what you're doing when you're online and presenting yourself on social media channels and across the ether world. So if you haven't already, you really want to make sure that you have reviewed your brand voice, what kind of tone you want to set and convey in your updates, and the kinds of emotions that you hope to evoke when you're sharing content. And these are really key things to think about. It helps you organize your approach. It helps you really identify who you truly are. Most important, you need to be authentic and genuine and transparent. So as you're asking yourself these questions and really pinning these pieces down, it's important to remember who you really are. And we talked a little bit about defining who your audience is not. It's also just as important to define who you are not and what your brand is not, so that you can stay away from that. And that's okay. You're not going to be everything to everyone, but it's important to be true to who you are. And if you're not quite sure, sometimes it's hard, like, what is my voice? Ask your staff or ask your customers. They'll know right off the bat, and they'll be able to give you a pretty clear definition. And if they can't, then you know that you really need to spend some extra time here in this space. Some suggestions for really honing in on that brand identity, developing your character and your persona, the tone, the language, the purpose. How do you describe yourself? You know, pulling out, are you warm and friendly? Are you a little more professional and serious? Are you there to educate, inform, or are you just having fun? You know, all of these are totally okay, but it's just really important to make sure that you're staying true to who you really are. And my next slide, I give you a little bit of an example. You can see the contrast between the friendly, personal, simple ice cream shop versus the medical practice that is a little more professional and serious. And the way that you're crafting your messaging in a social media post might be something like this. You know, happy spring, warmer weather can only mean one thing. You know, we're now serving your favorite and our famous jelly bean ice cream. So you get this sense here where you've identified yourself as friendly and personal and simple, and you're engaging. So come on by this weekend and enjoy a scoop, you know, that call to action. And again, leading the buyer into that, you know where we are, the bright yellow brick building on the corner on Main Street, park around back. You know, you're giving them this, you're guiding them right to basically your front door. The professional and direct format. And again, there's no right or wrong unless it's not true to your brand. And this is where the professional, we're pleased to announce new treatment options are now available at our Portland location for your convenience. For more information, additional information can be found on our website, etc. So you can see that it's a different tone, presents the same kind of information. It leads the patient to get more information, tells them where to go, but it is that more serious. And this is how you get into that routine of presenting consistent brand identity personas online when you're interacting, and your followers will know what to expect. They'll come to get to know you, and then you're starting to develop a reliable, transparent, authentic, and genuine relationship with your followers. So again, just a key reminder to be authentic, genuine, and transparent. So, and I mentioned of evoking an emotion, and this doesn't have to be as dramatic as it sounds, but you do want to create something that's going to resonate. And resonating could be anything from feeling informed or feeling uplifted, feeling like I now have an action plan, empowered. So there's a lot of ways to evoke that emotion, and you'll have your more successful content will be content that really shows how your product or your service is going to make their lives, your audience's life better. If you think about your own behaviors in shopping or buying, really the sole reason why you do that is so that your life will be better. So I'm buying that new vacuum cleaner because I really need to have a cleaner house and I really need it to be easy. And so that's the benefit to me. My life will now be cleaner and more efficient, and I can do it faster because this great vacuum cleaner is making a world of difference. And so this is shifting that conversation and the approach to really making it about how your customer, your client, your audience is really going to walk away with something of value and that's beneficial to them. So how do we translate that to copy? One of the first things that I do is create a spreadsheet. When I'm working with clients and for my own marketing, I make a list of these 6 categories. What are my products and services? What is my mission? Sometimes I even break that down per product and service. I make a list of the key differentiators. I also make a list of my primary narratives. These can be 1 or 2 sentence narratives. Then I break it down into concise talking points. So again, let's use the vacuum cleaner. Those concise talking points: efficient, affordable, makes a difference, HEPA filters, all of these different things, the concise talking points that I want to have handy, again, so that I'm not having to think, every time I want to put copy together for an Instagram post or a Facebook post or for a Pinterest pin. I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. I want to go to my copy that's developed, that's already true to my brand voice. It has the right tone. It has the differentiators that I want to remember to highlight. And then the supporting narratives it might be examples of how to use the HEPA filter or how to turn on the vacuum cleaner. The supporting narratives are just helpful tips and helpful pieces that will support the primary narrative, and then also support the products and services that you're ultimately selling to your audience. From there, so that's my spreadsheet. I have that in one document, and then my next document is literally a visual style guide. I put this together for every client that I work with. We have our color palette, we have our fonts listed. I have a couple of sample images just so that I'm always remembering the style that I want to use when I'm putting photos together, and then the logo. I include that here as well. And a lot of times you'll have different variations of these. Maybe the logo, you have a black and white version, you have a colored version, but I keep these files right there front and center so that I just know that I want to stay on track, and those are the ones that I'm using. The color palette, I also find it's helpful that if you actually write down the hex numbers or the specific RGB numbers right there on your document, so that you're not constantly having to go back and look them up and find them. If you're working in Canva or some other design platform, when you're putting content together, you'll always have that handy right there. So last but not least, I just want you to remain consistent. So whatever you do through all of this, whether it's your copy, your visuals, your tone, the consistency is really critical. And this consistency is what will ensure that you're resonating with your audience each and every time, because there will be no unwanted surprises. You always want them to feel like they know where they are, what they're getting, and what to come to expect when they're visiting your brand. So on a side note, if you do need design resources, I have a couple here: Canva, Shutterstock, Upsplash is a free photography site. Snap is also another really great resource. The Canva and Shutterstock are particularly nice because you can actually do some more graphic design work. It's very intuitive, even for those people who are not so creatively inclined. They have some really nice templates, and it's just drag and drop. So that might be a really nice resource to check out. And actually, today's presentation was built in Canva. So this is a good example of what you could expect if you thought about using it. Okay, so now we're at the stage of content planning and production. It is time to launch that strategy. So you know your goals, you know your audience, you know where they are, where you need to be in order to be in front of them. So we're going to talk about how do I now actually put that content together. I need to engage, I need to attract, I need to really make this work for me now. So this section brings it all together. Again, you're here, that's launching the strategy. And I want to just point out that as you're developing that content, that it's not about quantity. You're always going to prioritize quality. And quality is subjective, but quality in this instance essentially means that you're following your brand voice, your brand visual, and remembering that you're helping. So instead of marketing to and doing something to your clients, you're doing something for them. And so each piece of your content should really be for them. Is it really valuable? Is it helping them? Is it something that's going to make a difference? Even if it's something as simple as updating your store hours, that's helpful. But throwing something up just to be posting is not only a frustrating and ineffective strategy, but it doesn't really bring a whole lot of helping to your audience. So we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And so that's where I try to get things organized. One of the first things that I do is sit down and create an editorial overview. And this is a very simple spreadsheet that I created myself that I use with clients. I break it into 6-month chunks, and we outline some of the key points that we want to focus on over those 6 months. Examples here include holidays and important events, some ideas to work with. We might have a monthly theme. We might have some promotions and sales. We know we have a product or service that we need to highlight. We'll definitely be blogging because that's such a great way to drive traffic to your website. It's also a really great way to have content to share on social media. I know I'll be producing a newsletter, maybe doing a couple of email blasts. I might do a featured weekly event. I'll have some reminders to myself. Don't forget to update that Facebook cover photo. And then also some forward planning. You have probably seen that the main stores have Halloween stuff out in July. So, you do have to plan ahead. So this is an example of where you would fill that in so that you're getting your content strategy organized and breaking that down into chunks that gives you some forward planning. It gives you some idea, some time to organize and get planning. As you talk about on the page before, we talked about categories. These are some ways to break down break down the categories into really specific ideas. These are general, broad scope suggestions. There may be some that are more applicable and appropriate for your particular brand and your business, but these are some good ways to get started using, again, the blog post, maybe company culture, particularly if you are hiring, if you do or you have a lot of employee turnover, it's important to highlight your company culture frequently so that potential staff, get to see what your company is like. You might answer frequently asked questions. You might just do some just for fun kinds of posts. But again, as part of that overall editorial calendar, you're developing content categories that you want to tackle each month. Again, this is helping you devise some direction. It helps you get organized. Then once you have your categories that you want to select from, and it can be anything and everything here, but I do recommend breaking off feasible ones. Don't overdo it. It can be a very simple selection. Again, you have to do what works for you. But once you do pick the ones that are going to work for you, you can break that down into even more specific categories. And my recommendation is to always follow the conversations. And so even if you're not maybe a big April Fool's kind of business brand and that's not your style and your content, you could still use that as inspiration for your for a post. So for example, you might on April Fool's Day, it might be a mention of something silly and fun that's not necessarily a prank or a joke, but it follows the conversations that are already happening. And again, it just gives you some direction and some inspiration for things to think about. And I went ahead and just pulled April 2021. So if you want to go ahead and take these and run with it, please feel free. Next up, so now that we've talked about the broad categories, we've talked about some specific conversations that might be happening, and you're pulling all of these different pieces together to inspire some specific content development. I then break it down into a weekly and monthly calendar. And again, this is just an example of what a spreadsheet that I put together that I share in Google Drive with my clients, and we collaborate on this document together when we go back and forth on content. An example of how I would use this editorial calendar, I did pick April 1st, and this particular client really loved the idea of doing a fun little thing. And so this is a holiday just for fun category. And the copy was houses are buy one, get one free this week with realtor from Jenny Green's Main State Realty. Use coupon code April Fools. So again, it's very lighthearted, it's fun, it was on point with the brand. We created a post that had 2 homes and buy one, get one free logo, and it was really cute. And we put it out, and we're gonna put it out next week. So it'll be, and then we just go through that process over and over throughout the month. And again, pulling from the overview editorial calendar, the content categories, and then the specific conversations that are likely to be happening around social media and each month. So if you would prefer not to use a do-it-yourself calendar, there are some really great resources. I personally am a big fan of Buffer and Creator Studio. Creator Studio is the Facebook and Instagram version of scheduling tools. You can work right in the Facebook platform. Buffer is a very intuitive, basic scheduling tool. And by scheduling tool, just in case you're not familiar with them, it's essentially a third-party app where you can put your content into it, select the date that you want it to go out onto the platforms, and it will do the work for you. So if you wanted to put all of your posts together at the first of the month, you could slide them into a scheduling tool, hit save, and then your content will publish as and when you decide, and you can let it run in the background. However, I just want to put a quick disclaimer, quick tip here that if you do schedule your content out, don't forget to go back and be on social media. So you still need to go back and check in with your audience, answer questions, engage with them. So even if your content is being produced through the scheduling tool, the critical piece will be for you to stay active and present throughout the month. So then you've got content, you've got it scheduled, you're really excited about what's going to happen, but maybe it's not taking off in the way that you would like it to. And this goes to the point that I just mentioned about staying present and engaged. And so I put together this quick monthly checklist of things that you can do every month that will help give your social media and online presence a little bit of a boost and give you some momentum. You can follow new businesses, follow new Instagram profiles, respond to reviews, comment, do a couple of quick boosts, which are a paid way to give a post that you make on Facebook or Instagram a little more momentum. $5 or $10 will go a long way with a boosting campaign. Write some blogs. If nothing else, put up a couple of blogs and share them on social media. It's a great way to drive traffic. Repurpose popular content. So if you see that you have some content that was really a big hit, redo it, add a new picture and share it again, put it back out there. Tag and mention other people. Again, we really want to make sure that we're taking advantage of the engagement opportunities and the social part of social media. So don't forget to get back in there. Don't be shy about inviting your friends and family. So as you make new friends, get them to like your page, get them to follow you. You also want to check in on new features every once in a while, and at least once a month. Some platform will have some new feature that will help you with your engagement. So it's good to be checking in to see if there are any new announcements, maybe the new feature on instant messaging in Facebook or something like that. So I think if you're staying on top of some of those updates, you'll be a little bit ahead of the game and also help keep your momentum going. run a giveaway or contest. It's a quick and easy way to, again, give your content a little bit of a boost. People always love free stuff or the chance to win something. So, so it might be a good momentum booster right there. And then also check in whenever possible. So, and by this I mean, if you are physically visiting another location, do the little check-in feature on Facebook or Instagram. Again, it just brings visibility to where you are and what you're doing. It also creates a connection with another business and helps build your community. So content trends for 2021. These are the big ones that are coming to light in the marketing world. We're looking at a lot of focus on inclusivity. And I think I spelled that right. Maybe not. But we really want to focus on, bringing everyone to everyone who could potentially be in your audience segments to your business. And it's really important to diversify what you're doing and to be open to who is it that you might be unintentionally excluding, and your audience is paying attention to those, even if there's in an unintentional and inadvertent, the social media users are savvy and they can see very quickly and clearly if you're not opening your doors to all potential audience segments. Live streams, they're going to be a big thing again in 2021. So if you're like me, you're probably a little nervous to be in front of the camera and be doing a live broadcast, but it really is something that's important and could be very valuable as you get comfortable with it. If people are tuning into those live streams. IG stories and reels, or the Instagram stories and reels, those are also going to be very big this year. The reels are little mini videos in case you haven't seen them or you're not familiar with them. I know from personal experience, they are very, very big with the 16 to 25-year-old range. So if that's your target market, that's definitely something to be very aware of. Social commerce. 2020 was a huge, huge year for e-commerce in general. And now the social media platforms are catching up with shopping features being more highly integrated, more effective, and creating more direct sales for small businesses. So we want to make sure that you take every opportunity to turn on any social commerce opportunities. And these would be things like Facebook shopping, the Instagram shopping features. Pinterest has some phenomenal tools now. So the social commerce, if I had to wager, I guess, will probably take over e-commerce within the next 5 to 8 years. So virtual and augmented reality, that probably is no surprise as we're a little more confined and unable to actually travel as much as we used to. But think of maybe a wedding venue, providing a virtual video experience for a potential bride and groom to experience the venue from the comfort of their own home would be a great sales tool for you. Think of those things. Anytime that you need to sell an experience or a physical space, that virtual experience is a great way to go. And there are some feasible ways to do that. There are some great local companies, if you can't do it yourself, but there are also some really great tools that are available to the average user now. And then last but not least, for 2021, purpose-driven campaigns. Users are, and audiences are really looking for that higher purpose. And I think that this psychology is coming off of a year of stress and anxiety due to COVID and other factors. And so the brands that are really moving with a purpose and making a difference in supporting members of the community who are more vulnerable are really going to be the standout brands. And again, you don't have to do anything that's not true to who you are as a business, but what you do need to remember is that that's what audiences are looking for. So something that's true to your heart and to your brand, it's okay and it's encouraged to put that out there in your social media and digital marketing efforts. So again, just a key takeaway from that summary, remember to be the social in social media. Don't shy away. Engagement is really, really important. And again, this ties back to the very first point of adding that helping. If you're going in there and you're helping create conversations and you're helping provide information, again, your strategy will be so much more effective. So if nothing else, these are a couple of quick takeaways, I hope quick. On Facebook, I recommend going into your settings feature. If you've not explored the back end of your Facebook site, your business page, there's a lot of unique things that you can do to improve the functionality of your Facebook page. So you will go to the settings. If you're on a desktop, you'll open your page. It's on the left-hand side and the navigation, the menu there. Click on settings and then poke around back there. There's ways to turn on some instant messaging features. There's ways to actually change the template of your Facebook page. So if you're a shop and you want to do more selling online, you might want to use the sales template instead of just the standard template. So there's some ways to get back into your Facebook and make that work a little bit better for you. Pinterest. If you're not on Pinterest, I highly recommend that, again, if nothing else, you go out and build a business Pinterest page today. It is invaluable when it comes to SEO, driving traffic to your website, showing up. And SEO, by the way, is search engine optimization. And so when I refer to SEO, it essentially means that you're showing up on Google or on Bing or Yahoo, and anything you can do to improve your search engine results will be to your benefit, because obviously being found online is one of our very first goals. Instagram, you can create more clickable links in Instagram by implementing what is called Linktree. You may have seen it if you're an experienced Instagram user. It's a third-party app that creates one link that opens up to multiple links. And it's a neat little feature. It just allows the users on Instagram to be able to get to where they want to go based on your post a little more quickly. And again, we're all about helping our customers and our audiences get to where they want to go, helping them find what they need. And so Linktree, that's a quick little easy way to make that happen. Hashtags, 8 to 11 are recommended on Instagram. We don't need them so much for Facebook anymore, but Instagram is still, it's a very critical component. It's how the search engine on Instagram categorizes and tags posts. So if nothing else, at least have one, but 8 to 11 is kind of the going number, and you can actually have up to 30. And I'll have a little bit more about Instagrams here in just a second. Next, integrate the commerce functionality. We just talked about that a few minutes ago, about how important it is to set up the Facebook shop, the Instagram shopping, and again on Pinterest is a really some great shopping features there. Google Business Listing, we talked about that before. Again, it's just a very critical piece of your online presence. Make sure that you claimed it and that you are using it to your advantage. Okay, so just quickly, hashtags 101. Again, 8 to 11 is kind of the going number, but you can do up to 30. And so one of the biggest questions I get is, where do I even start? How do I do this? So I break hashtags into 3 categories. There's community hashtags, branded hashtags, and campaign and event hashtags. Community hashtags are listed here. You can see like a product or service, a niche in your industry, Instagram communities, so bakers of Instagram, for example, special events or seasons, holidays, locations. There might be a daily hashtag like the Monday motivation or Wednesday wisdom or throwback Thursday. A lot of people have heard of that one. And then also phrases that are relevant to what you do, acronyms. You can even use emojis. So those are kind of the community hashtags where you're finding different groups essentially on Instagram to be associated with. Your branded hashtags are your hashtags. So these are your business name, I've given you an example of what I use when I'm on Instagram for my company. And then the campaign and event hashtags, if you have, maybe you're running a special promotion, and Mayday's donut glaze sale, for example, might be a hashtag if you're a donut shop and you're having a sale on the glazed donuts or whatever. So, but you get the idea that you can have a specific hashtag for a campaign or an event. So. And that's, again, how I would categorize them. I find my Instagrams, so this is how I kind of organize them, but I find them by looking at my audience. So I'll actually go to people who are following me. I'll look to see what they're using. I'll look at to see what my competitors are using. And then I also look to industry leaders. And I literally physically just go to their profiles. I'll gather some up. I'll look at them, see if they make sense, if I like them. Sometimes it's a little more anecdotal. Sometimes it is a little more statistical. Another thing that I do is I pull up on my phone the little magnifying in Instagram. I click the little magnifying glass. I type in the word that I want to search, maybe a theme keyword. So for here in this example, I typed in marketing. I clicked on the little tags to see what hashtags are trending, and it will bring up a nice list of relevant hashtags, and I use that and to also create some hashtag ideas. Another question that I get frequently is, should I go for the big ones, the 20 million posts? I think the most popular hashtag is the word #love. And yes, it's okay to do that, but you'll find that you'll have a more engaged audience and more followers when you kind of narrow down to those smaller hashtags. Like the ultra niche hashtags are actually where you want to be. And so I look for posts that or hashtags that have 5, maybe 10,000 posts at most, because all of a sudden I've got a really nice community of engaged specific conversations around that particular content, around that particular hashtag. But again, sometimes it'll be trial and error. It's okay to mix and match. The key is to look at the metrics. And so again, going back to our, when we're setting our goals and how to measure them, making sure that, do I have an intentional purpose with the hashtags? Do I really want to see what this hashtag is doing for me, and how am I going to measure that? And that's where I sometimes pull from hashtag tools, such as All Hashtag or Right Tag, Hashtags for Likes. These are third-party apps that will provide hashtags for you, and then they'll also give you the results, and they'll help you analyze how effective you're being. Some of the scheduling tools that I mentioned before, specifically HubSpot and Later.com, and Hootsuite, for example, they will actually also measure your hashtag effectiveness and make suggestions for hashtags. So sometimes if you want to do all in one and have a very cohesive strategy and putting all these pieces together, using one of those more robust platforms will not only do your scheduling, but it'll also help you with the hashtags and the content development and the metrics. It gives you a lot of analytics on the posts themselves in addition to the hashtags. So the bottom line, and as we wrap up, is social media and your online presence will be whatever you put into it. And so a lot of times the expectation is if I put it out there and I'm there, then it will happen. But it doesn't just stop with the posting. It really boils down to how much you engage and how much you're helping your audience. And so, of course, one of my favorite quotes just to wrap up for today, the best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. And I love this so much because it goes back to, again, that helping piece. I always feel like if I'm helping, then it's just more authentic, it's more genuine, and I'm building a relationship as opposed to just doing something to someone to get something out of it. It really needs to be that genuine, authentic relationship building. And on that note, I am wrapping up. I kind of flew through a lot of that, and I would love to take questions and be more specific when and how I can. Kelsey, you're nodding. There might be some questions in the queue, so I'm opening it up.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Jenny. I as a marketer, feel like I also learned things today. So thank you from me as well. And so everyone, you will receive a follow-up email from me afterwards that has the recording to this and the slides. So we will stay on and answer as many questions as possible. But if you have to jump off, don't worry about it. You will get you can just skip to the end of the video when you come back to it later to see any of the questions that you might have missed. So yeah, so you have lots of fans in the chat. They're very excited. Starting off, there were a couple of questions about Google Analytics, and one in particular is that, could you confirm Google Analytics are only used for websites because it's filtered through Google?
Yes, it's just a website app. So you would need a website, you're in a unique domain name in order to install those. If you don't have a website and you're using a social media channel for now as your primary platform, then we would defer to the metrics that are within each of those platforms.
Thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to answer it, but I wasn't sure how to do it that specifically.
Yeah.
And then someone was asking if there's help available to ensure that Google Analytics are set up properly to measure the right analytics. And so if you requested advising with a business advisor from the Maine SBDC, we could definitely go over that with you. As you sign up, you could mention that you came to Jenny's session. It was very, very helpful and informative, and you would like follow-up information about Google Analytics specifically, and we could probably set that up. So I feel like that's more of like, we can definitely help you with that. I'm not sure that we can help it right now in this session. For anyone asking about the specific spreadsheets, that you'll get those slides, so that information will be in there. And then someone was asking, how do you feel about cross-posting? Is it effective? Does it create fatigue if they see the same post on every platform? And when is it beneficial, if it is?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first and foremost, the platforms will prioritize original content. So you will get a little better algorithm SEO searchability if you're creating original content in each of the platforms. That's not to say you wouldn't be able to use the same picture, and it is okay. It's totally fine because there's different audiences. Some people only use Instagram and they're not always on Facebook and vice versa. So cross-posting and sharing content on each of the platforms is totally fine. But one thing that I do recommend is not always sharing your Instagram post over to Facebook. So that is not best practice. But what you could do is take that same photo, maybe adjust the sizing so that it's formatted and optimized for a Facebook post, and then include maybe a link because Facebook is clickable. So you would optimize that same content, but just put it into Facebook separately so that it's not going from one to the other. Every once in a while, it's totally fine though to cross post, straight from Instagram over to Facebook. Again, and it is the same company, so they're not as particular, but Pinterest actually ended up eliminating the feature of that cross posting for that. The individual platforms just like to have their own content and their users using the content within that platform.
Yep, I do that. So I use Later, which is one of the scheduling platforms, and so I have all of our content in there, and then I create each different platform's version of that post.
Yeah, and that's a great practice, and it's a great way to do it because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's no way you could have one content stream for Facebook and one content stream for Instagram. No small business can do that, so it's okay to do just what Kelsey said.
Exactly. Someone is asking, can a social media presence work for a business without having a website? And I had mentioned in the comments that there are lots of businesses that exist solely on social media sites and a lot of sales on Instagram and that kind of thing. Do you see that?
We have seen that. There are some disadvantages to not having a Google presence or an online domain-owned presence. Even something as simple as just a one-page landing page can still work to your benefit and offset anything that you might be missing by primarily using social media, even if it's just to say, I'm on social media, because consumer behavior, particularly when looking for specific products, is to search on on Google. Like I'm looking for, you know, shoes, I'm buying shoes. They'll start with Google. They may have seen it on Instagram. They might run into it on Facebook, but if you're specifically intentionally buying and shopping, you're going to Google, or you're going to your search engine and typing it in there. And social media posts and content does show up on search engines, but not as effectively as an optimized website. And again, you don't have to do a full e-commerce platform and have the website, but you can have a 1 or 2 page landing site that tells your customers where to go, so that when they can't find you in that Google search, or so that they can find you in that Google search, and then jump over to social media to continue the shopping experience. And then you'd have the right links and things like that in place.
That's very, very helpful. Do you recommend pop-up signups for email marketing on your website?
I do. I think they're a quick way to collect email. And email is worth its weight in gold. And it was not included in today's conversation because it's probably a presentation all on its own. But email marketing is actually more effective than social media. So if you wanted to, really run with it, email marketing is something that you should certainly prioritize as part of your strategy. But the pop-ups are a great way. The only thing to keep in mind is to make sure that you pay attention to the settings. Use a pop-up feature that can identify repeat traffic so that they're not inundated, and that also it filters for people who've already submitted their email, and that it also isn't showing up on every single page. You don't want it to be intrusive and distracting. You want it to be helpful.
That makes sense. We did have someone asking, if someone is very new to social media posting and not very tech savvy, do you suggest taking a class? And if so, do you have any recommendations? And I will take this time to plug another special series that we will be doing this summer. We are actually going to have a couple of different series that would cover this. So we're doing advertising on Facebook in June, selling on social media in July, understanding social media analytics in August. So we are going to actually be offering a couple of series that would help you with that. So we're in the process of getting all that finalized and scheduled out. So definitely keep an eye on our schedule. But do you have any recommendations in the meantime?
I definitely am always in favor of learning as much as you can. And I think that being empowered to have control will help you make better decisions, and understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it. And classes are a great way to go. A really nice online academy is through HubSpot, actually. They have some really nice, really simple, easy to use classes that you can do right online. Most of them are free. Some you might need a small subscription, but they have some great resources there. And then also, if you're using a scheduling tool, oftentimes like the Hootsuite and the Buffers and the Later.com will also have online tutorials that really dig into the essence of how to get your channels set up, and then also how to connect that with the scheduling process so that you're planning content and the metrics, all kind of comes together in one place.
Great. Another thing that came in actually from a couple people, and something that I have struggled with, is how difficult it is to interact on Facebook business pages with other business pages. Sometimes it's hard to get to the like button from one business to another business. Have you found that to be true, and do you have any workarounds for us?
Yeah, good question. It is a little tricky. I recommend always working from a desktop. That's the first and foremost tip. So for some crazy reason, Facebook totally shifts its dashboard and platform when you're on a mobile device. So you'll find it much harder to do it that way. So if you start with the desktop or a laptop, the buttons will be more visible and front and center. You can change your setting to interact as your page. So there's a space there, and because I wouldn't be able to tell you right off the top of my head exactly where to click, I'd be happy to send to Kelsey the exact instructions, and then she could share it as part of the conversation. But there are some ways to navigate that. But again, just make sure you're on a desktop and not your mobile device.
There you go. I'll take all the help I can get. So I'm happy to share that with everyone else.
Yeah, I'll look that up and send it. And if you can pass it on, Kelsey, that would be great.
Win-win for everyone. Awesome. We had a couple people asking about how to find hashtags, but then you went into kind of depth of a couple different places to look, and there was actually several really good recommendations in the chat. If anyone is looking, you could read through there. I also saw a couple questions at the end. Do you recommend a specific platform for blogging?
Well, I recommend your own website. So it's always about blogging is, well, I shouldn't say, let me rephrase that. Blogging is always about helping your clients and your customers and learn something, educate them, provide information, delight them. That's your first and foremost objective. Your second objective, and from the marketing perspective, is to drive traffic to your website. And the SEO value of blogging, the search engine optimization, is invaluable. So if you're blogging, I would do it right on your website. Set up a blog. It'll be an item in your navigation and your menu, and it will help you bring traffic to your virtual storefront or your website. So in terms of going off-site to an actual blogger site, to be honest, we don't even go there because we just think it's so important to be on your own URL.
That makes sense. And nowadays, most websites that you're building from templates have a blog option to build an internal site with that.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah.
We had a comment saying, "You seem to love what you do. Thank you so much for this. Do you have any specific types of businesses that you enjoy, like your favorite to represent?"
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. I know my favorite are just great people. I really, Kathy, my business partner, and I have been so lucky to work with just the most amazing small businesses who are also so passionate about what they do, and just that energy of working together. So we've worked with a pet sitting company, we've worked with a dentist office, we worked with realtors, we've just the whole gamut. And I don't have a favorite. I just have people it's just the people that I love.
Yeah, and you spoke to that earlier in the authenticity of businesses messaging of like, if you believe in your business and that's the marketing content that needs to be built, like it's fun to build that type of marketing content because we all believe in it.
Totally.
So I agree.
Totally.
Awesome. There are some questions about contact. We will follow up with, or I will follow up after this with an email that has our contact information. If you are interested in getting to know the Maine SBDC or Jenny, we recommend clicking that request advising button and mentioning that you came to this session and that this is something that you would like to pursue. It looks like another question just came in. Do you recommend a specific website platform to create a website for someone starting out? So we are going to also be offering a session on how to build websites, I believe, or optimize starting a website in May. There it is on my spreadsheet. So do you have a favorite platform for building websites?
Well, we always prefer WordPress over the website template builders, and there's just a slight difference. WordPress is you technically own the site. When you're using a website builder such as Wix or Squarespace, you're basically renting space to build a website there. And it's a little more out of the box, kind of just these templates there. Whereas with WordPress, you have a lot more customization options. But in terms of someone just starting out, if you're in e-commerce, I would recommend going with a templated Shopify option, but you can't go wrong with Squarespace or Wix. Those are two really popular solid sites that make it really easy for the beginner. But then if you feel a little more adventurous and you're looking really long term and you want to have more flexibility and customization, the WordPress option is really our top recommendation.
I have also had that experience, so I can confirm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Jenny. This was fantastic for everyone. It will be recorded on our YouTube channel, so if you feel like you missed anything, we can always rewind now with this technology. So you have lots of thank yous coming in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here. I so appreciate your time. And again, thanks so much.
Happy to have you. Everyone have a lovely day.
Great. All right. Thank you.